So I was already working on a project when I realized that I wanted to take you along with me on a journey. And this journey is going to be hopefully an exciting and interesting one, but I definitely know it's something that I've always wanted to do. I want to create sort of my dream website build or stack. There's just all these techniques that I've always wanted to master and learn, and I decided I just want to go for it and start building it and create a devlog along the way. So today is day one. So what I'm gonna do right now is spin up a completely new environment, deploy it on Vercel, make sure the repo is public for you all to access, and see where that goes. Just kind of take you along with me on my progress this afternoon. First thing I did here was to spin up a Git repo, which you'll see in a moment why this first step was already a fail. Oh gosh, I'll get back to that. Next, I opened up Terminal, went into my sites folder to create a directory for this project. I'm really trying to get better at using the terminal and actually, not relying on UI. And you can actually see here that I am creating a whole bunch of folders. And in the moment, I thought that I was nesting these, but you have to cd into them and then do the make directory command. So there's that. But now we know. I finally go into the devlog folder here. And for this project, I'm using T3 by Theo, which honestly, it's so over my head, but this is just how I learned, by going into the deep end and hacking my way to eventually feeling like I can sort of swim. I unfortunately went too far in the deep end here and enabled TRPC, the next mistake that I'm about to learn. More on that later. I knew I wanted authentication for my project, but I wasn't familiar with Next.js and whether or not this will work with my headless CMS, which right now I'm leaning towards payload. We'll talk more about that later. So GPT only got me so far here. So I ended up pulling up the docs to learn more because that's the responsible thing to do. I learned that payload, while it does have authentication, is not really the same thing because it all revolves around the CMS. Like authoring and stuff like that, like who your editors are. If I was going to have some sort of app with single sign-on and all that for my customers, I'll need to use Next.auth or a service of some sort. I'm going to go with Clerk for now, since Theo's tutorial actually used that as well. With the app set up, let's get back to my Git situation here. When I tried to push to my remote repo that I created earlier, I was getting some errors. They're pretty obvious now. Essentially, I didn't have a remote, so when I tried to publish a main origin branch, that wasn't working as well. Okay, what's happening? It's just like basic things, and it's so frustrating that I still get this wrong. On the positive side, though, I did end up installing GitHub CLI, which I knew was something I should have and be familiar with. So following the tutorial, I created and initialized a new repo, all from the terminal. So with a fresh new repo, I went into Vercel to deploy and then fail. Again. So remember how I enabled TRPC in the setup? Well, this is when I realized it's way too complicated to try and learn right now. I mean, it's like a powerful technology, but I need to somewhat keep things in scope so I'm not having to learn a million things all at once. And really, this is how I end up never finishing side projects, so I opted to remove it from my app and was finally able to deploy with no issues. The first win, technically. Almost 30 minutes just for that shit. With my new sense of confidence here, I installed dependencies like React 3 Fiber, the dry library, which abstracts away a lot of tedious 3JS stuff, Zoostand for managing states, and so far so good. Oh wait, no. When I installed React 3 Fiber, I must have installed without the types or something because my IntelliSense, that like autocorrect thing in VS Code, just wasn't working. And when I tried adding a canvas, it didn't auto import. So this was an issue, kind of a huge issue. I had to remove the dependencies and reinstall everything to finally get it to work. Back on track. This project will have functionalities beyond a typical marketing website, so I'm going to use shadcn to save time building out my UI. Now, with all the dependencies finally set up and things working, I wanted to plan out what the structure of my project should be. Like, where do I put components? How am I organizing different scenes with different models and animations, all that stuff. I wanted to do things right and decided to spend some time looking into modern ways to structure and just figure out how to organize everything with a build like this. Eventually, I did just opt to keep it really simple, and I think I can just put all of my main 3D stuff in components. And because ShadCN created a UI folder, I can put the rest there, and hopefully that should be enough. I had a bunch of errands to run, so I cut it short for the first day. This was probably just like an hour and a half of work here. I spent the rest of the time planning out my feature list and to-dos, which you can check out in the GitHub. It feels ambitious considering it doesn't even have half the other stuff I want to do, but I can always cut back later. That's the beauty of side projects. I'm finally the client. Okay, we have a long road ahead of us. Stop this. My dude is just jamming. Look at him. He's jamming. So, we have a long way ahead of us. As usual, I did not get as far as I would hope. Lighting's a little better. Lots of things happened. So I thought that I would be able to just spin it up very quickly. A lot of new issues as expected. You just kind of have to fight through it. From insanely basic stuff like creating a new repo. I don't know why I was blanking on that and why that took forever. It just happens. I mean, I've created over hundreds of repos in my life, and for some reason today my brain was not working. But that did still lead me to installing GitHub CLI, which kind of, a little bit better of a developer experience than relying on GitHub Desktop, I think. I really want to get more familiar with Git in general, how branches work, how stashing, all that stuff. So that's kind of a side quest for this. I'm not going to say it's smooth sailing from here, but it's definitely going to be much more, it's not even much more predictable, but even though it's like, so my problem, or kind of like the hardship of this right now, is that I just spent an hour doing something I've done like a million times, or not a million times, but like I've done before, and I was still running into issues that I feel like I shouldn't be running into, but they still happen, and it still took time, right? So I feel like I just have to be okay with this, and that's just part of the process. It happens to me, to all software that I use, like when I'm in Blender, even when I'm in Figma, like it just rookie mistakes or like beginner things that, I don't know, just, I feel like these are things that I should have already known, and I can just kind of speed through it, but there's still a lot of gotchas, right? So I don't know. I feel like I'm never going to be an expert at this, and that's okay. That's like part of it, but whatever. Yeah, it's tough. It's really frustrating when you've done so many, when you've done something so many times, but then you still run into issues and you have to look things up. I will say that having AI helps a ton, but it's not always perfect. And, it recommends things that are not great, but it gets me to the answer much quicker. It's just like a workflow thing, I think. So, I think it's very helpful. It's something that I'm going to be relying a lot on in this project. I'm also trying to be really diligent and actually reading documentation and, trying to understand how things work. One of the big kind of first roadblock that I ran into was this TRPC. So it's a much bigger topic and probably something way too sophisticated and complex for my skill level and like what I actually need. So I need to just like stay on focus and keep the scope as small as possible. And yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be something that I need to like spend time on right now. This whole thing really is just kind of a learning thing. So I am trying to learn, but I want to be able to finish something. So, you know, it's just tough, I think. Anyways, next step, I kind of wrote it out into a to-do. I want to design an intro experience, be able to get into an internal page. I don't know how many pages this thing is going to have, maybe a few. So there's going to be some design next time. And a lot of coding right after that. I'm still also learning Blender, like more complex things with Blender. I don't know if I'm gonna take this project to be like also a Blender kind of exploration. So I might just stick to like very basic things and hopefully can get something pretty interesting. Then we go right into interactions and animations and stuff like that. I'm thinking about Framer Motion for my animation library, but I'm more comfortable with GSAP. I've built a lot with GSAP, so that's going to be interesting to implement that. But as of right now, I am happy that, you know, this is my second React 3 Fiber, Next.js, TypeScript, you know, project. And so far, the beginning is a pain, and it sucks, but it's also a tiny bit rewarding. That's enough to keep me going. So that's day one in the books. I will catch you all later. See ya.